I'm not 83, I have to be honest, 82, but he got that wrong. And I was going to thank the people for inviting me, but that's a hard act to follow. Well, at any rate, this session's titled Lifelong Learning, and my comments are titled, If You're Not on the Edge, You're Taking Up Too Much Space. And as I said, I'll be 82 in a few months, and I just celebrated my 60th wedding anniversary with my husband, my husband's 88. Well, don't clap. It's been how he put up with me is the issue. Anyway, so I guess I can say I've lived a long life. I should have followed Tim Carpenter, I think. But I think that I'm still learning, and I believe my lifelong learning is due to the fact that I've always been on the edge, particularly with my mouth. And there's some of you here who know me, so being only given 15 minutes is really a problem. But let me tell you that being on the edge has exposed me to a tremendous amount of serendipity. And I've gotten very interested lately in the link between being on the edge and being exposed to serendipity. Now, what do I mean by being on the edge? It means taking chances and getting out in front, kind of blazing new trails, not being afraid to say what you think, not being afraid to talk to people who you probably shouldn't talk to or talk about. But it also means not being disturbed by being challenged, criticized, which happens to me all the time, and taking what I call intellectual risks. I suspect that most of you here today are probably in the category of being on the edge. I'm probably speaking to the choir. And I don't want you to think I'm judgmental, that if you're not on the edge, something's wrong with you. I'm just saying that that's been my life. What do I mean by taking up too much space? I mean people who take up too much space, and again, there's nothing wrong with them, we need them, are very happy to be dealing with life as it is and don't feel they want to take any kind of risks and so forth. Well, I was looking over my almost 82 years, and I decided that being on the edge has exposed me to a lot of things that have enhanced my lifelong learning. And that is serendipity. And what do I mean by serendipity? Serendipity means coming across things that you never expected because of actions you've taken. And what I have found is it's not widely acknowledged that being on the edge exposes you to more serendipity than others might experience. So I want to tell you a little bit about what's happened to me, not to be immodest or ego, but my stories have to do with being on the edge, which is me. I was born in the Depression in Los Angeles, 1929, beginning of the Depression, and my lifelong learning was supposed to be, I was supposed to find a husband, get married, have kids, right? That was supposed to be what my lifelong learning was. And for a variety of reasons, my life hasn't turned out completely that way. I have been a wife for 60 years, I have 3 grown children, but I am not just a Lido Island housewife. I live in Newport Beach on a little island. Without giving you too many details, let me tell you where I have found this to be so important. First of all, I was just a housewife living in Newport Beach, what I was supposed to do, and I get a phone call from a cousin of ours in Illinois. It was the University of Illinois, and he said, Judy, a colleague of mine is moving to Irvine because they're going to put a campus in Irvine, the University of California, Irvine. He doesn't know anybody. Would you mind talking to him? And I said, no, not at all. I'd be happy to. His name's Jack Peltison. So I met Jack Peltison, got to know him and his wife, and he turned out to be the chancellor of the campus at UCI, and he invited my husband and me to a dinner. And the dinner was just for the faculty who were going to start the schools, School of Physical Sciences, so forth. And we were the only non-academics there. I don't know why we got invited, me and my big mouth. And so I'm talking to a professor, Jim March, who some of you may know became very famous at Stanford. And remember, this is the 60s, and he says to me, I wonder if we can teach you middle-aged women anything. And I was pissed. And first place, Well, first place, I come from a family, one of my aunts was the first woman lung surgeon in the United States, another aunt was a psychiatrist, another aunt was a social worker, another aunt was a screenwriter, another aunt was a farmer. My mother was a mother because I have a twin brother and a sister who's here, who's just 13 months younger. And I said to him, "What the hell are you talking about?" Now, that's what I mean about being on the edge. I shouldn't have said that to him, whom I'm a little housewife, But I thought, God damn it, I'm going to go back to school. So I came home, and we were having dinner, and I said to my husband and kids, who were then kind of teenagers, "I'm going back to school. Is that okay?" And they said, "As long as you're home for dinner." And make the dinner, too. Okay. So I thought to myself, well, maybe I'll go back to school. And I decided that if I enrolled, he'd have to take me, right? Because he told me, "What can I teach you?" I scored in the 32nd percentile in math. That means only 32% were worse than me, right? I mean, I never should have been accepted at graduate school. But I enrolled, and he had to accept me because of what I said, right? So I was one of the first 3 who went to UCI as a graduate student, and that was in 1965. And so anyway, then they told me they didn't have a master's degree. I wasn't going to have a career. I was just going for the hell of it. And so they sent my records up to Cal State Fullerton, and I got a master's degree at Cal State Fullerton. My bachelor's in sociology was in sociology, 1951. Which my husband called garbage 1. He never knew quite what that was. But anyway, so I had this master's degree, and I didn't really know what to do with it. And it's against serendipity. I was called to be on the Coastal Commission, and I was asked to be on the Orange County Grand Jury in 1969. And we indicted Timothy O'Leary, and we also prevented the Irvine Company from buying all the land around there. We're going to put high-rise and everything, and I'm a staunch environmentalist, and I live among developers, so I wasn't very well liked. And I was very visible, and people saw me, and I was a big mouth and everything. And so I got a call from someone who said, "Would you teach a course in extension?" Which was when UCI was first opening. I didn't know about teach. I said, "Yeah, I'll talk about it." So I did. And then I was in the parking. Now, this is all serendipity, unexpected. I'm in the parking lot at UCI, and this professor who had met me at that first dinner says, "Oh, you're the Judy Rosener I met, and hi." Frida Kaplan, you should know her. I just noticed her in the audience. I see a lot of friends. Anyway, so this guy says to me, "Well, you want to teach this course, one course in the new school." He said, "I'm a professor there. I met you at Jack Pelderson's dinner. I teach. I don't know how to teach." "Well, just try one course." I said, "Okay." So I was a lecturer. And then I thought, I kind of like this. So, maybe I should do something about it. And then serendipity, I couldn't get a job getting a master's degree. I was still a housewife. And I read an article that was very provocative to me. And I noticed the guy's name, Dan Masmanian, and he was in a footnote. So this is being on the edge. I thought, I'm going to contact him. So I call. He worked for a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. I called him, and I said, "Dan, who are you? I like what you said. I'd love to talk to you." And he says, "Well, I'm coming out to Claremont. I'm going to be a professor at Claremont Graduate School. Why don't you give me your data and see if I can get you in?" I was then 47. Now, in those days, we would never take a PhD student. I'm a professor at UCI at that age. I mean, why? By the time you're through with them, they're old, right, Tim? So anyway, the long and short of it is, he got me in. And I went back to Claremont, and I got my PhD when I was 50. Okay, now in those days, today is not so bad, but we don't have many PhD students at that age. But the interesting thing was, I majored in sociology, my master's was in political science, my PhD was in public policy, and all of a sudden I got asked to teach in a business school. I can't even balance my own check account. And I have never taken a course in business, ever. I know nothing about business. Anyway, I am teaching a course. I've been there 30 years. I just retired. And I had to have a research focus, right? Because you're in a research university. What the heck am I going to do? And all of a sudden, serendipity. My husband went to Caltech. My father went to Caltech. My son's a PhD in physics and electrical engineering. And I have a twin brother, and I don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I decided there's a difference between men and women. And I knew that the first time I took a bath with my twin brother. But the truth is, everyone acts like we're all the same. We're trying to make women act like men and men act like women. So I decided I would do research on differences in the way men and women led organizations. That would make me a business professor, right? And so I studied, women in the International Women's Forum, of which we have 2 members right here, and there may be more, and women who were running companies, and then we matched them to men who are doing the same thing, and then I asked them all kinds of questions. And it turns out, although we're on a continuum, there are real differences between the way men lead and the way women lead, okay? Then another serendipity. I'm new and a professor, and one of my colleagues says, Judy, you know what, that's really interesting. You ought to write it and send it to the Harvard Business Review. I said, Harvard? I didn't know what the Harvard Business Review was. Well, serendipity, Rosabeth Cantor, who is a woman, was the editor of the Harvard Business Review. And she was in my study. And she said, my gosh, that's interesting. We're going to publish it. So in 1990, when I was 60, I have an article in the Harvard Business Review, which turned out to be one of the best sellers in 1990, called Ways Women Lead. It didn't say women were better. It just said we were different, and that different was added value. This was a new idea in 1990. I still think it's a fairly new idea. Anyway, so then another serendipity comes apart. I'm at a conference as a result of that. I'm now considered that I know something. And I meet a woman named Marilyn Loden, and she says, you know what, Judy, I want to write a book about cultural diversity, and I need a PhD. I don't have one because to give it credibility. I said, okay, what do I do? I put my name on the book. She sort of teaches me everything. And we write this book in 8 months. She's in San Francisco, I'm here, and we put this thing together, and it turned out to be the first book about how to manage a diverse workforce and why that was a business case, not a matter of social justice or affirmative action. That book sold 75,000 copies, and you can get it on Amazon for $1.25, but the shipping is $3.50. So anyway, then I became an author, so to speak, and the other thing that happened was Oxford Press calls me and says, would you write a book built on your Ways Women Lead article? I'm not an author. Well, you could write a book. They gave me $35,000 as an advance. I don't know what I was supposed to use that for, but I wrote that book called America's Competitive Secret, Women Managers. And that sold about 35,000 books. So I'm just looking at my time. Oh, my God, I've only got 2 minutes. I'm not going to be able to tell you all these stories about serendipity. But the point is, my whole life has been like this. I started getting paid speeches. People were paying me. My husband says he'd pay me to shut up, 1 year, I made $80,000 in speeches. The Little Housewife from Newport Beach. Anyway, it looks like my time is almost up, but I had a lot of other examples to show you that are completely serendipity. I didn't plan any of this. And so I've got some takeaways for you, and I haven't been able to give you several of the other examples I'm going to give you, but nonetheless, I have to go to my comments. What did you learn by what I said? And I didn't get to say what I wanted to say. But I would want to say that one of the serendipities is you have a city council person here in Long Beach. What's your name again? Jerry Shipsky was a student of mine, one of the first students I had at UC Irvine when she got her MBA. What year was it? 73, yeah. I didn't know what I was doing, so I have to tell her that now. Anyway, but it's been really amazing that my whole life has been serendipity, and I think it's because I've been on the edge. I'm not afraid to talk to people. I mean, I had some great stories, but I can't tell you because I've only got 25 seconds left. So here's my takeaways. Don't be afraid to think and act differently from others, and be very happy with who you are and not worried about what other people think of you. Don't be afraid to be involved in controversy. I'm constantly in controversy. I think it's really fun. And by the way, you earn money. Don't think planning is going to take you where you want to go, because I didn't plan any of this. And be willing to see opportunities wrapped in unexpected contexts. That's really I put a place for change at my dinner plate, okay? But the thing that I was going to say, and now I forgot, because I'm 82 and I don't remember what I was going to say. I need to take training from some of you. No, I had a really important point I was going to make. Oh, heck. Well, I guess I don't get to make it. But anyway, let me just quickly see. I've got 38 seconds left. I also know Lynn Wainfriend. Is she here? Do you know who she is? She won me in an auction. No, this is serendipity. She won me in an auction to get me to speak for free. I would have spoken for free. They didn't know that. And that auction was being held by Frida Kaplan, who is Frida's Finest Foods, who was working in Women Against Gun Violence, and they were auctioning speakers off to raise money. So Lynn paid. She won't tell me how much she paid for me, but she decided to speak to me rather than pay for me to speak, right? And so we became friends, okay? And I think she may have nominated me for this, but I don't want you to think that's the reason I got it, but, At any rate, the point I'm making, and I didn't get to make all these points, is that don't be afraid to go out there, talk to everyone, ask stupid questions, be criticized, because it pays off. And I have 45 seconds to tell you how I met Hillary Clinton, who is a friend of mine. I was in the airport at Dallas, and a guy was reading a book that I thought was really interesting. I didn't know him. I went up to him and I said, "Hey, what are you reading? How come you're reading that?" And he said, "Well, I'm the dean of the business school at the University of Arkansas." And I said, "Oh, because that book is so interesting." And he says, "Well, who are you?" And I said, "I'm Judy Rosener." And he said, "Are you the one that wrote the Harvard Business Review article?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, I don't have any minutes, but I'm just going to take a couple more seconds. That's my being on the edge, you don't mind. He said to me, "Would you come and speak at the business school at the University of Arkansas?" And I had 3 reasons to speak then. The money was good to corporations. It's a place I want to go that I've never been. Or third, it's a group I want to talk to. Well, I'd never been to Arkansas. To me, Arkies, I grew up in Los Angeles. So I went, and the other speaker was Hillary Clinton. This is in 1990, so right after my article came. So I'm there. Hillary gives an incredible speech. No, she didn't go over time. She had no notes, and she spoke their language. And then there was lunch, and I thought she'd leave, but she didn't. She came back, and she listened to me, too. And then she said, "Well, Judy, if I ever get to California, I'd love to see you." She was then the wife of the governor of Arkansas. I didn't know who he was. So she came out. Bill Clinton, I don't know him, but I've known her for 25 years. We are very good friends. I've been in her house. She's been in my house. She has a painting of my daughters in her house, and so forth. Why? Because I talked to that guy in the airport. And so don't be afraid. Thank you very much.